Hello, and welcome to yet another exciting and insightful episode of Co-Create.ai video platform sponsored by Network Science. This is where we invite world and industry leaders to speak to us on various topics and offer some amazing insights to our listeners. Till date, we have covered topics very pertinent during the pandemic, which include cybersecurity, Industry 4.0, employee engagement, sales management, and today we are going to cover possibly the most important enabler in social inclusion, that is the role of deep tech in financial inclusion. To speak about this, I'm incredibly proud to host Diego Torrescini, multilingual, cross-functional, and multicultural financial services leader with more than 2 decades of experience in senior positions in banking and electronic payment space, associated with a few Fortune 500 companies, including Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and Citigroup. He's, of course, recognized for outstanding leadership, problem-solving skills, adaptability, and empowering teams to consistently achieve and exceed business objectives. He carries deep understanding of financial products, services, markets, and the operational processes and technologies required for delivering amazing customer journeys. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very proud to welcome Diego to this talk today. Welcome, Diego.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you for having me. And let me congratulate you for being a driving force behind the accelerated adoption of deep tech. I'm really proud to be here.
Oh, that's brilliant, brilliant, Diego. You know, it's been quite an amazing interactions with you over the few days, and I'm so happy and glad that you could find time to talk to us today. I'm sure our discussions and our interactions is going to bring in some great insights for our audience, and let's get started. So, of course, we gathered here today to talk about financial inclusion overall, and obviously it's a very big area in today's pandemic situation. We all know that the role of financial inclusion in reigniting the global economy in the post-pandemic world can never be understated. Ensuring universal access to products and utilities features, of course, in the top 10 UN 17 sustainable development goals, identified as an enabler for ending poverty and hunger and achieving gender equality. Financial inclusion, as we all know, also has a power to boost economic growth and support industry and innovation. It, of course, helps nations, particularly the emerging developing countries and geographies, find a path out of the fiscal damage which has been brought by the pandemic across the world. You've, of course, worked extensively in the emerging economies, Diego. What's your feel? Do you also see the same? Do you also feel that financial inclusion can really be a path out of the damage that has been brought in by the pandemic?
Sandy, in my experience, I've seen firsthand how digital technology is the single most important enabler of financial inclusion. As you just mentioned, expanding the access of financial services to the unbanked and the underbanked will have definitely a positive impact in many of the SDGs set up by the United Nations General Assembly. It doesn't matter the geography. We can look at Haiti in Latin America, Papua New Guinea in the Pacific, or Nigeria in Africa. And you will find that people have the same needs. They need easy ways of paying, of getting paid, and they need access to credit and investment opportunities. And they also have the need to participate in the growing e-commerce space that has exploded due to the pandemic. And definitely this is one of the ways that the economies will recover, but by making sure that all these individuals in the base of the pyramid have access to this new digital economy.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I liked about what you said is it is not, it is not, people have the same needs across the world, right? And that is so critical for all of us to understand that at one time we may look at these individual countries and individual regions, but there is a global solution that is possible to be brought in into this. So, talking about technology and talking about how technology has started impacting our daily life, fintech is a big driver of financial inclusion, right? You can't include the financially underbanked and underserved unless you use technology to the best extent possible. Is that the right way of looking at fintech? Because not, while there are so many organizations which are looking at fintech from, bringing the underbanked together, but I'm not sure whether they look at it from a point of view that it can really bring nations out of poverty in a big way. Do you also feel the same, Diego?
Yeah. Absolutely, Sandy. And let me tell you that, I've seen digital transformation disrupting almost every business we know, and it's definitely impacting financial services. And fintech, without a doubt, is a major force behind financial inclusion. Fintech is enabling new profitable business models in customer segments that are not targeted by traditional players, usually because of the high cost of distribution, right? Digital technology is definitely turning this upside down and creating all these profitable business opportunities, while at the same time offering the much needed financial services that the base of the pyramid has, and at the right price point. That is the other major disruption, right? Technology is bringing these products at the right price point for this particular market segment. And this is creating definitely a win-win situation in every developing country.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that you talk about all these aspects, but my mind also goes back to the way traditional banking players have reacted to this digital transformation. Of course, fintech is largely been driven by the new players. I'm not really sure whether the traditional players are also catching up, or are they behind the digital curve? And maybe is the regulatory challenges that these companies face that has played a role in them behind the digital curve. But are they behind, or do you feel they are as much in the same race as the new financial institutions are?
I would say that they are still catching up. They are still waking up to the new reality of amazing customer journeys that are enabled by technology. I would say that there are probably two major reasons why banks are still catching up to fintech. One you mentioned is regulation. Regulations in many parts of the world is still outdated, and it's the fintech companies that are challenging regulators usually, and not the well-established traditional financial institutions. But the other major component of why major banks are still playing catch up is outdated technology. So you have this combination of outdated regulation and old technology that creates a lot of challenges for these major players. Just to give examples of things that I've seen in my career, many traditional banks made significant investments in technology in the 80s and the 90s, and they built these huge, rather complex and inflexible legacy systems that today create a lot of challenges when you want to develop a digital customer journey, right? The fintechs, they started digital. They didn't have these weight on their backs of old technology, where they invested millions and millions and millions of dollars, and now they understand that they cannot do anything with that, traditional banks. So that is a major advantage for fintech. The other thing that I've seen is that fintechs are challengers for the regulators. They push the boundaries, they challenge the status quo, and many of them are working with regulators in order to bring regulation up to date. The products that have been developed by the fintechs are products that didn't exist in the past. The way of transacting using mobile phones, just using your phone number as a proxy for your bank account, right? All those were things that didn't exist in the past. But they started working on this even before regulation was there. And actually, it's interesting when you look at different markets like the US, you see that usually the fintech goes ahead and implements a product and then sits down with the regulator to see how they can help them create the right legal framework for that, right? And we've seen these in maybe other verticals like transportation. What happened with Uber. They created a completely new business model that was not regulated, and they faced many challenges, but they kept on pushing for change to happen. In what I see in some of the developing economies is fintechs are more, they want to sit down first with the regulator before going into the market, because they don't feel comfortable that they will get a good outcome if they challenge the regulator right in their face. But that is slightly changing, because the more and more fintechs that we see in the developing countries, they're creating this momentum of new products, and definitely they are accelerating change, particularly on the regulatory space.
Oh, that's a brilliant point, Diego. I mean, challenger banks, or challenger in any market actually is known for innovation, known for nimbleness, is known for challenging the way traditional approaches are taken. And what you mentioned is absolutely right. And you also made the point on an example that you gave was with regards to using the mobile phone as an account number, or actually using the mobile phone for all the transactions that are possible. That also brings me to an example or the way mobile phone or digital is being used today to bring in financial inclusion. For example, in some of the emerging economies, it's a trinity of bank account and a unique identity number, which is obviously linked to the bank account, and the mobile phone, because every single citizen or individual has access to a mobile device or internet on the mobile device, which is more important. So if you have these three connected, you obviously are able to drive massive amount of social and financial inclusion using this trinity, right? And I come from India, and I've seen this working extremely well, where from an Indian population standpoint, there were only 30% of Indians were banked just about 7 years back. And now, because of this trinity of bank account, unique identity, and internet on mobile phone, we are now seeing a massive number of Indian population coming under the banking system. Do you see the same thing happening in developed economies as well? Because I also heard in some places that, for example, in the US, we still have a large population which is unbanked. So how do you really use fintech or mobile enabled financial service to get them into the banking system?
Definitely, Sandy, the trinity that you mentioned is behind the digital transformation wave that I see in fintech, right? The penetration of mobile phones in the US, smartphones are everywhere. In developing countries, there's still a significant percentage of users that still use feature phones, but still it's a mobile phone, right? So, and there are ways that you can use that phone, even if it's a limited piece of hardware to enable financial transactions and financial services, right? What I've seen, not only in the US, as you mentioned, but also in the developing economies, there are still people that are not familiar with banks, are not a part of the banked community, right? And that's why we see solutions in the US like Venmo, right? You don't need to have a bank account in order to have a Venmo account, a digital wallet. Of course, you will have some limitations in terms of how you operate if you don't have a bank account, but you still have access to a lot of things that you wouldn't have if you didn't have a smartphone and you didn't have Venmo, right? Same thing happens in the developing countries. Digital wallets are closing this gap and starting to provide basic services to the unbanked population. And you know, I worked very closely to a digital wallet in Haiti in the last couple of years. The name of that wallet is Mon Cash, which is My Cash in French. And it's a very, very basic wallet that started on feature phones, but created a lot of value for the unbanked population because it enabled something as simple as transferring money within the country from one person to the other. It's just a simple P2P value proposition that you would think it's, well, that's not really sophisticated. Well, it's really not. But if you don't have bank branches and you don't have a bank account, you have to go to these brick and mortar businesses that charge you a lot of money in order to transfer small amounts of money, right? So a telco like Digicel in this country leverage technology and leverage the physical network of Digicel businesses that were already being used for top-up services for mobiles. And just with marginal cost, they use this huge network of brick and mortar locations to create an amazing value proposition, which is people could just send money to their friends and family just using their feature phone, which is the very basic version of a mobile phone. And they were able to transact on the phone or go to any of the 4,000 locations that Digicel already had between own locations and agents, just to deposit the money or withdraw the money. So definitely the mobile phone has been key to enable these new products and new services that are now available for the underbanked and the unbanked.
Oh, fabulous. And such kind of initiatives are so very much required across the world. And I hope there is, our listeners are also will understand that it is not only in one part of the world, but this kind of digital transformation is going through across the world. And the ideas can be cross-pollinated. We can use the ideas from one country, one region into the other to use. Diego, that also wants to bring out my favorite topic in finance, which is deep tech in finance, right? As we all know, and just for our listeners, deep tech is technologies which are future technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, IoT, augmented reality, virtual reality. So it's an umbrella term being used these days to look at the impact that such technologies are bringing in various fields or domains that that are there. But today, I wanted to discuss with you on finance. What is the role that deep tech is playing in finance, and what do you see really happening? Is it still out there, not being used on the ground? Or you feel actually deep tech is being used in a big way already across the board?
Sure. And let me make an additional connection between financial services, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, and financial inclusion.
Right.
the moment you start expanding the access of financial services to the base of the pyramid, you start getting vast amounts of data, right? Because before financial inclusion, uh, we don't have any visibility of what's going on. Everything happens in cash, everything is informal, so there's not a lot of data that you can use for anything. But the moment that you start expanding the access of financial services to the underbank and the unbanked, people start to transact, people start to pay, start to get paid, start to buy on e-commerce, they start getting microloans, they start making micro investments, and all that is data. It's data that is readily available. And we all know that what artificial intelligence needs and machine learning needs is data, is vast amounts of data.
Right.
So it's just natural that the fintechs that are working in this particular space where financial inclusion is key, the next thing to do is let's use these tools in order to extract value from that data. So I see artificial intelligence and machine learning being used in not only in the traditional players in the financial services space, but also used by fintechs that are getting into these new markets, into these new customer bases, and they are starting to generate huge amounts of data, and they need to do something about it, right? And the way to go is AI and ML. And what do they do with that data, right? Where do I see, the value coming from using AI and ML from all these newly available data? Well, many things, and this list is constantly growing, right? But definitely, some of the major areas that are impacted by this new data and AI and ML is, improving financial decision making for both users and the fintech companies, security and fraud detection, which is key, and we've seen, the many challenges that today we face in the cyberspace, particularly in financial services, about security and fraud. Process optimization, processes are constantly optimized and modified, and they evolve based on the data and the information that we extract from the data. Asset management, customer support, probably, most of us are familiar with these robotic platforms like chatbots, for instance, where you interact with a computer, but in a very natural way, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about creating an amazing customer experience or an amazing customer journey, and that is one of the keys where AI is definitely having a positive impact. Some other particular products that are being impacted by AI and ML is insurance, being able to better understand the behavior of customers and being able to put together the right products around insurance. Same with loans. And also forecast and personalization, right? All these data that becomes available, if used the right way, can improve the accuracy of how you forecast your business and how you can personalize the experience to each individual customer using the data from that individual. So many things are being impacted by AI and ML in financial services, and particularly in these new customer segments that are benefiting from the expanded access to financial services.
Oh, that's an amazing list, and as you said, I think this list will grow. We've already seen how AI and ML is making a massive amount of difference in one of the process optimization, which is collections, for example. How you can forecast, how you can personalize debt collection using various AI ML techniques, so that the lenders are able to collect and reduce the cost of collections. Diego, maybe we could double click on some of these points that you mentioned. Let's if I have to pick up and if I have to remember the 7-8 points that you mentioned about, of course, improved financial decision making as one element, right? You started with that. Would you like to would you like to mention what and how people are able to improve financial decision making using AI and ML?
Sure, absolutely. And one of the things that I've seen changing a lot in the last couple of years is how data is consumed, right? So as you have all these vast amounts of data coming into your algorithms, uh, many times the complexity becomes simplicity when you visualize the data the right way. So one of the things that I've seen is, AI is helping decision makers. And again, decision makers can be a company, or a decision maker can be an individual that wants to better understand their financial situation. So AI is taking all these data points and creating ways of visualizing that data that helps the individual make decisions. And this is something that before AI was not that easy to achieve. And there were many limitations because of the limited access to data and the difficulty in connecting the dots the right way. So this is changing a lot now with the use of AI.
Yeah, I do. You mentioned it right? I mean, I used to remember about 7 years back when I used to work in technology services. We used to say suppress the data so that you only get the right signals. You pick up only the right signals, but rest of the data is noise. We don't need that data. The world's changed, as you've also noted, right? We need all kinds of data, right? Nothing is noise. We need all kinds of signals and all kinds of data. Today, we have seen organizations that we represent collect 400 different signals from customers and various other aspects for them to make the right decision and help improve the financial decision making. So brilliant point there, Diego. The second point you also mentioned was around fraud detection. Clearly, that has become very, very critical in these circumstances that we are in. Cybercrimes are of course increasing significantly, and there doesn't seem to be a way out for organization. Either you are already hacked, or you will be
Yes.
you will be hacked very soon. So
it's a matter of time, right?
It's a matter of time, right? Either you're hacked or you don't know that you're hacked, right? Something like that, right? So so where does AI ML fit into cybercrime, fraud detection space, especially in the financial services industry?
Yes, I think that the key word here is prevention, right? So what is that I can do? Doesn't matter, what company you're looking at. It can be financial services, it can be a manufacturing company, like what happened with this meat processing plant in the US in the last couple of days, the huge hack. So when you discover that you've been hacked or there has been a security incident, it's too late. It's already costing you money. It's already costing you, headaches all over the place. So the way that I see AI helping in this situation is by doing a better job at preventing a security incident, right? And AI and AI algorithms have the capacity of connect to many different data points and understand the probability of a hack, right? So and there are many examples of companies that are working on that in order to connect to many different sources of data, understanding your industry and understanding your particular situation, and identifying what may happen, and more importantly, what mitigating actions you can take in order to minimize that risk. In financial services particularly, this is key because we're talking about money, right? And if you add to that, what's going on with cryptocurrencies, where hackers can get paid and just disappear in the air, it becomes more and more important. So definitely AI has a role to play in cybersecurity by improving the ability to predict and prevent this type of security incidents.
Yeah, brilliant point. I think predicting the likelihood of an enterprise getting breached is such a powerful use case for AI. What's you know I would like to dwell in one more point, and then we can get
Sure.
into some kind of closure here. You also mentioned about personalization as a key element for using AI and ML. Again, from a personalization standpoint, it's so critical because no longer I, as an individual or as a customer, want to hear about general aspects about the services being offered by financial institutions. How can AI ML help in personalizing the services to these individuals?
Yeah, sure. I think that all of us hate the one-size-fits-all approach, right? When you are offered products that are clearly not for you, and it's a lot of work on your side as a consumer to find the right products or the right services. The combination of digital technology and AI is changing all that, because as the relationship between me and a financial institution generates more and more data, all that data with the right algorithms can be used to better understand my behavior, to better predict my behavior, and based on those predictions, making sure that I am offered the products or services that I am more likely to need. And all this is being done with the right architecture in ways that are not costly. In the past, the major problem about personalization is cost, right? So that's why you try to make everything standard. Today, the cost of one-on-one personalization is a marginal cost. So if you have the right algorithm, if you have the right data points, from the technology perspective, it's very easy and not costly at all to create personalized experiences for each of your customers. And AI plays a major role in again, extracting the value from all the data that is available from the relationship between the customer and the company.
Perfectly said. So Diego, let's obviously this is super stuff. This is super insights. I'm sure we're going to have a great response from everyone who will listen through this video session with you. I want to now take you towards understanding you a bit more. Right? I mean, just to ask you some quick fire questions and get to know you a bit better. So let me start with my favorite question. What's your superpower? And of course, you have many, I know, but which is the one that you will say, that it is you who have it, and not many people around the world have that.
Okay, well, my superpower. Probably I would call it X-ray vision. In terms that I have the ability to look deep into problems and go beyond the symptoms and trying to understand the root cause, right? What I've seen in my career, and actually also in my personal life, is that we as human beings tend to jump too quickly into solutions before understanding the problem. And I think that it's very important that you really understand the problem, because chances are that if you don't, you will come up with a solution looking for a problem, right? Because you're not getting the solution for the problem that you have. So yeah, I think that I would say that probably that is one that I actually enjoy having that superpower, because it's so interesting to really go beyond the symptoms and understand what's creating that opportunity, that problem, that friction. So yeah, let's call it X-ray vision.
Awesome, awesome. Before we started this conversation, the video session, you also mentioned about the weather in Miami, and we hoping to get on a bike, over the weekend. So I'm assuming that's your passion, that's your hobby, or you have many more. And what
Well,
do you really do? Is it short rides, long rides?
yeah, well, I have a couple of hobbies, but I would say probably the one that I spend most time with is riding my motorcycle. And you mentioned, the weather in Florida is usually nice. Sometimes it gets too hot, but anyways, is a nice place to have a motorcycle. So yeah, I do ride my bike on a regular basis. I ride with friends. After a ride, we have a barbecue together, so we socialize. I enjoy that a lot. And every now and then we go for longer rides. We like to go to the mountains in the area of the Carolinas in the U.S., which is a different landscape, right? Florida is mostly flat. North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, it's mostly hilly roads. So that's also a lot of fun.
Diego, you've interacted with some of us at Network Science, over the past few weeks. Which Avenger would you like to relate Network Science to? I know it's not an easy question. You could relate us to many Avengers, but again, if you want to pick one, which one that would be?
Yes. Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, I do have a character that I think it's the right connection to network science, which is Iron Man. And I would say there are a few characteristics of this Avenger that connects to what we do, right? It's creative, it's futuristic, it's confident, and it's a little stubborn. That you need a certain degree of stubbornness in order to move forward, right? So definitely, I would say it's Iron Man.
Oh, fabulous! And possibly the first time I've heard stubbornness to be on the positive side. So you said it's important to be a little bit stubborn to move
Yeah,
forward.
just a
I like the
bit.
way you put that in.
It's like salt, right? A little bit of salt is good. Too much salt is really bad.
Yeah. Of course, of course, of course. What's your biggest work pet peeve?
uh, for me, it's lack of attention to detail. I've seen this happening in
That's
a
where the
lot.
X-ray vision also plays a role, right?
Yes, yeah, well, yes. I think that it's not easy to have the ability to understand the big picture, but also be careful about the little details, right? So I've seen a lot of times people are extremely good at the broad picture, but they miss on the details, or people going just to the details, not understanding the bigger picture. So I think that you need to strike the right balance. Uh, you know, Many great ideas fail because you don't pay attention to the details. And so when I see that, it turns me off, really. I mean, I really enjoy seeing something that has been well designed. The idea is great, the strategy is great, but when you go to the implementation is great.
Yeah.
I think that is the challenge, right? And that is what, for me, it's my biggest pet peeve.
Got it. Got it. If there were only three apps on your smartphone, and now you are riding your bike into the mountains, which are the
Okay.
three which are the three apps that you would pick?
Okay. So the number one is definitely Waze, because I don't want to get lost. So that is always on my phone, even though sometimes up in the mountains, reception is spotty and connectivity to internet sometimes fails. But in any ways, I do need Waze. The second would be WhatsApp, and that is the way that we communicate. And I would say all over the world,
Yeah.
being able to communicate instantly, either using WhatsApp or just other platforms, it's key. So for me, I need to have something that makes it easy to connect to the world in real time, and particularly when you have friends and connections and family all over the world, WhatsApp has become the way to go for instant messaging. And the third one for me, e-commerce is amazing. And I've seen, I think that our generation has seen e-commerce start from nothing. I've seen eBay appear in the horizon. I've seen Amazon appear in the horizon. Sad that I wasn't smart enough to buy stock at the very beginning of these two companies, but it's okay. So today, for me, e-commerce, I use e-commerce every single day, and Amazon is the application that I would keep in my phone. So definitely, the three would be Waze, WhatsApp, and Amazon.
Awesome. Well, last question from my side, Diego. If you were to write a book about you, your life, what would be the title, and why would you do that? Yes. Why would you pick the title?
I think it would be around common sense, what I would write about my life, and probably the title would be something along the lines of, common sense is rather uncommon.
Of course.
And this is a little bit of what I've seen in my life, and this is what I try to use all the time, right? I try to use common sense as much as I can, particularly when I'm in situations where I don't have the expertise or the knowledge of the experience. But I found out that, trying to resort to common sense, even in situations where you're not familiar with, help a lot. And actually the combination between common sense and the X-ray vision, I think it's a very, very powerful combination. So yeah, I would probably, in my life, I think that I try to use, and I continue to try using common sense as much as I can. And I've seen good results coming from that.
Diego, it's been incredibly useful and insightful to talk to you today. Thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. It's amazing to have you always by our side, having these interactions. Having going through these interactions, I couldn't feel more proud in terms of how you've really captured all aspects about financial inclusion, fintech, and also the ability of AI and ML to really make a big impact in not only emerging markets, but around the world. Thank you very much, Diego, for joining in today. Stay safe. I hope everyone is well at your end, and hopefully we will speak soon.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure, Sandy, and thank you again for the opportunity to share some of these ideas with you.
Pleasure, Diego. Thank you very much.